It's Tony and Mr. Eric.
What's
It's
good?
time for us to check in for the week. Hope everybody had a great week and get ready for another great week. Um, this is the check in podcast where we inspire and encourage the youth. We discuss topics that they deal with on a daily basis and try to keep them encouraged and just try to give them tools to help them through the challenges of being a teenager and a young adult. Today's topic, we'll be discussing um, the benefits of controlling your emotions. Now, this is a very, very important topic for teenagers and youth because this is a very vulnerable age. You're dealing with emotions that you haven't experienced before. Things a little bit more intense. There's high stress level with stuff going on in school, things going at home with parents, uh, issues with girlfriends and boyfriends and things like that. So this topic is very important. This, if you don't have it under control, could affect the rest of your life at your age, because a lot of teenagers and young adults are being tried as adults. So if you lose control of your emotions in a drastic way, it could cause you to lose 15 to your life, in prison and things like that. Like that's on the drastic end. But just from just a day-to-day standpoint and just managing day-to-day life, is if you can control your emotions, it's so many benefits, and it gives you so many advantages in life that can propel you and the and everything you have planned for your future. Any thoughts? But before we get into the topic, Eric.
Yeah. Um, Realistically speaking, this one is kind of near and dear to me just because of some of the hurdles that I have personally had to overcome. So this topic and this conversation is really, really important and really, really critical, just like you were stating, because there have been situations and circumstances in life in general, not just for myself, but many people, where the wrong decision in the wrong moment, not being able to govern your personal emotions so that you can see things clearly and make good decisions, it truly does affect the rest of your life. And not just from the personal mindset of I don't want to go to jail, or you losing 10, 15 years of your life is a critical thing, but from the aspect of being able to cope with the different pressures that life brings and still understand how to be okay, how to cope effectively, and how to relieve the stresses that you have so that you don't get overwhelmed and you don't make bad decisions.
Right. And again, the topic says emotions, but just to be more thorough, we're gonna discuss the emotion of being mad and anger, because I think that's the emotion that really deters a person's future. Getting angry and getting out of control with anger. I think that's the one we're going to focus on the most. And even the Bible speaks of controlling that emotion, and it's very clear in Proverbs 16:32. It states, "Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city." Now, what that is saying to me, that the ability to control your anger gives you an advantage over any foe, over any situation. It gives you the ability to think clear. When you're angry, you're not thinking clear. You're not. A lot of people, when they say they get real angry and mad, they say they black out. What does black out mean? Like, that means you're not even in this world no more. Like, you don't even know what's going on. A lot of people, when they get to that point of just anger, like they don't even know what's going on. They're not even aware of what's going on. Then they snap to, and then like something bad and happen, because they wasn't able to control their anger. So I mean, it's very important to control your anger. Controlling your anger is very important. I'm to get into a story, and this happened last year, June of last year. What happened was I was with a young man had got into a wreck, and when you get into a wreck, the cops, they come and they investigate everything. They figure out who's in wrong or right and things like that. But in the investigation, they discovered that a young man could have been like going too fast, and like going too fast, and they call it reckless driving. Is actually what they call it. And so they got a ticket. Now, granted, in this wreck, nobody was in. Well, someone was injured, but there was another car injured. It was like they ran into a tree. So it was on no property damage, no human. Like the people in the truck that wreck was hurt, but nobody was like majorly hurt. Um, so everybody was just happy to be alive, right? So then now this cops come and start to write these tickets, right? I think he ended up writing like 3 tickets, and I'm there because it was my truck that was involved in the wreck. And the cop was writing 3 tickets, and the individual mom was there. And of course, they like the mom was like, my son just got into a wreck where he could have, died in shock. And you had the nerve to come give him a ticket for reckless driving. And on top of that, it was raining. So the real cause of the wreck was the roads were just slick. It was a deep curve. It was just, it could have happened to anybody. And actually, this road and this curve has a history of wrecks. Like we talked to plenty of people, say it's like a wreck on this road like every month. Like even when they came in, they picked up the car, the wreck yard said this road keep us busy. So for the cop to give them like a reckless driving ticket, he knowing that this happened on this curve in this road a lot, it just seemed very insensitive at the moment. And with the situations of the moment and much of the moment, it was a lot of anger. Like, why are you doing this? So, there started to be some back and forth. So at first it was the mom, and then of course, the mom, and then the young man, he started to get angry, right? And it started to be a back and forth between the cop and these 2 individuals, that the mom and the individual that was involved in the wreck. But the anger at the moment was understood, but the anger, the how they was handling it probably wasn't the best way to handle it, especially with the law enforcement and things like that. They are law enforcement, so they have certain powers and abilities to do things. And me being there, kind of just like such a situation, I knew the anger at that moment wasn't the best. Arguing with the cop wasn't the best. The cop was getting mad, and he was about to write more to, it could have escalated. He threatened to arrest, the mom and things like that. And like, some told me to go up to the young man and tell him, I said, man, you don't fight cops in the streets. If you have an issue with the ticket, you fight that in the courts. You don't want to do anything in this moment that can make the situation worse. So it's best right now to keep a cool head. And if there's any issue with the tickets, we can deal with it in court. All right. So the young man, he listened. The mom, they calmed down. Everybody listened. The cop gave us the tickets or whatever, and we went about our way. All right. So now it's time to go to court, right? Because of the ticket. So we got to go to court, right? So we have friends in the courts and things like that. Family members have friends in the court. And because the young man didn't have about a previous record and the situations of that day, they waived all the tickets. So they didn't even have to, even go to court. Like there was even no fine that had to be paid. But if that situation, if the anger would have took over and the cop would have arrested one of them or something like that, it could have been a whole lot worse. But because they calmed down and you handled the situation in a better way, like there was no damage done besides the truck being wrecked. So that just shows you a benefit. Like that could have went two ways. It could have went the way it went, or it could have been even worse, and somebody could have been arrested and put in jail for a night. Then you had to bail somebody out. That would have been more money. Then you had to go another court case because you assaulted an officer or you got into an officer. So not controlling your emotions, not controlling your anger can not only ruin that moment, but it can ruin so many moments going forward. And that's what you gotta be aware of. It's like, is me getting angry at this moment, what is a long-term effect is it gonna have on me? Right? At school, when somebody is bothering you and you getting frustrated at school with an individual and you're mad at them and you want to fight, right? Is that fight the consequences of you fighting that person? Is it worth what you have to deal with in the future? Like those, you really have to think about that in the moments where you can get to anger to the point to where you want to get but like physical with somebody, right? So Eric, you have anything to say?
So yeah, like I said earlier, this particular topic is near and dear to me because I'm someone that had to overcome a lot of anger management issues. And I mean, there are several times that I've been in situations that, like you were talking about earlier, when people black out, you really don't know what you're doing. You're not in control. And so I ended up putting myself in several situations that I could have seriously caused other people some bodily harm. Just put it that way. And I, really, the only way I can explain it is that um, God was just looking out for me because each and every time I was in one of those situations, it was somebody there to snap me out of it. And it was somebody that I was close to. And so if it were not for that, I don't know exactly where I would be right now. I could have been, that penitentiary situation in my life could have been a reality. So one of the things that I had to learn how to do was, live that Proverbs 16:32 scripture because I understood that I was on a very, very dangerous road at an early age. And so there are different things that I did to help manage that and cope with it. One thing that I did was I got into martial arts, and it was one thing for me to know how to fight and go around them on my just everyday life. I knew how to fight before I got into martial arts, but when I actually learned martial arts and I learned the art of fighting, I knew what I was capable of at that point. And so one of the things that I was taught was discipline because it's not very difficult to hurt somebody. But when you know exactly how to do it, when you know exactly how fragile human life actually is, it makes you focus more and pay more attention on the things that you do. It makes you aware that, hey, your hands are weapons. When you pick up a rock or a stick to try and assault somebody with, it doesn't really take much to really hurt somebody, and then you have to deal with those consequences. So martial arts was one of those things that I picked up, and it basically taught me discipline. And discipline is extremely important when it comes to anger management. Another thing that I actually use to help me is just simply forgiveness, man. The Bible talks about forgiveness over and over and over again, and it's for a very good reason. I mean, the Bible says if you don't forgive your neighbor who you can, if you don't love your neighbor who you can see, how can you love God who you cannot? If you don't forgive your fellow man, then why should God forgive you? And so forgiveness for me was a huge thing because I had a lot of issues with a lot of unforgiveness. And that was the focal point of my rage and my anger. It was just simply unforgiveness. And so one of the things that really helped me to forgive and really helped me to not just deal with my anger, but helped me to, I don't want to use the word conquer, but it helped me to get over it a little bit better. One of the things that helped me to forgive was having an understanding that the people that hurt me were just human beings that had already been hurt and they didn't know how to deal with the situations that they were in. So they took their anger and aggressions out on me. And so once I understood that these weren't just bad people, they were just people that did not have the understanding that I had gained at that point, or either or if they did have that understanding, they didn't know how to get over it. They couldn't
Now, like, would you call that giving them grace?
I would call that giving them grace because it comes down to forgiving people for being human. We're
Right.
all
Yeah, that's
human.
what I'm saying. Like, we
Well,
all are flawed. We all are flawed.
yeah, we all make mistakes. It's just that sometimes people don't know how to come out of it. And
Mhm.
just because they don't know how to come out of it doesn't make them a bad person.
Right.
It makes them uneducated to the tools that are out there. And unfortunately undisciplined, because in order to come out of things like that you have to be very, very disciplined. So being able to discipline yourself, being able to understand the situation that you're in helps you to climb out of those types of situations. And it helped me to be more tolerant, forgiving, and graceful to other people because I began to understand, hey, I got the same issues that these people have. I'm just trying to deal with it and cope with it in a better way. And so understanding that I'm pretty much cut from that same cloth that they were, that helped me to really say, okay, you're not a bad person. You just don't know how to cope with your issues. And when I understood that, that just I literally felt the weight lift off of me, you
Right.
know, and it made it a whole lot easier for me to forgive people when
Mhm.
I understood the situation for what it was. And it made me a whole lot less volatile as a person. And
Okay.
so that, I mean, really, forgiveness saved my life.
Right.
I say that each and every day. Forgiveness
Right.
saved my life.
And not only did you forgive, but you recognize that you had an anger issue. I think that was a very important part in the process. Like, I have anger issues to the point to where I rage and I black out. And you recognize that and you attack that weakness that you had, right?
That's it.
And like, that's just being honest with yourself. And I ask, if you're listening to this, to be honest with yourself. Like, do you have anger issues? When you're angry, or do you become are you verbally abusive? Do you become very volatile? Do you black out? Be honest with yourself. And when you're honest with yourself, that gives you ability to attack it and to do things to like what Mr. Eric did. Mr. Eric said he started to do the karate. He realized that it also helps him to just to
Forgive.
be forgiving, um and also being forgiving. He was able to see that not only did he deal with this, but there's other people that deal with that too. So therefore he was able to understand and be slower to anger because he realized that, okay, that person dealing with these issues too. So I understand. You're right.
That's
So
it.
you know what? I give you grace. You mad? You dealing with this? And a lot of people, they might even know that they're dealing with that, but because Mr. Eric educated himself on issue, he's able to see when other people are dealing with the same thing, and then he's able to give them grace. Give them
And
grace.
I just want to say this too, because there are a lot of people that might be listening, and they don't necessarily understand that they may have like serious anger issues because
Mhm.
it may be normalized in their environment, and
Oh
that
yeah, that's a great
very,
point.
very common thing. It has become so normalized in different environments to be angry, to be frustrated, and to rage out that it seems to be a way of life. That is not normal. And that is why we are seeing so many young people being incarcerated these days,
Mhm.
because it has become a normalized thing. You see it on TV, you hear it in the music. It's okay to be angry. It seems to be popular to be angry and to do things when you're angry that
Mhm.
normal people don't do. And if you get caught up in that mindset and that culture, you can pay a severe price for it. So understand that if you are consistently angry, if you are consistently distrusting of people, if um, if you find yourself in a place where you're constantly nagging people, when you're annoyed, you start nagging. Nagging is a way of lashing out. When you start nagging people, things begin to escalate. And the more the person that you're nagging, they escalate, then the more you're going to escalate. So it could be something very, very small and minute that you end up getting into a full out brawl over, that at the end of the day, it wasn't really worth it. Somebody stepped on my shoe, it was an accident. And now somebody's in the penitentiary. I've seen gunfights happen over stepping on people's shoes. But at the end of the day, it really wasn't over somebody stepping on somebody's shoe. Something happened to them earlier that day. They were angry about it all day, couldn't get back at whoever it was. And now they're taking out the rage that they felt from an earlier situation because somebody else stepped on their shoe on accident. Had nothing to do with somebody stepping on the shoe, but they didn't check the emotions that they had before they got to that point. So it just keeps building up and building up and building up until at some moment, for some small thing, everything explodes and it gets very, very ugly very, very quickly. And if you don't know how to check that, if you don't know how to say, okay, I'm in a place right now where I need to go sit down somewhere. I need my adult version or young adult version of a timeout. I
Yeah.
need to go somewhere, sit down. I don't care if it's counting to 10 or 100, whatever you need to do. Think about the idea. I'm upset right now. Identify why you're upset and do whatever it is that is necessary in order to calm yourself down. If it's removing yourself from a situation, then remove yourself from the situation. If it's calling somebody on the phone and saying, hey, look, I need to vent because I'm getting to that place that I don't need to be, then do that. You know, there are hotlines out there for the people that you can call because you're not having a great day. Is hotlines. There's absolutely no excuse to go and do something dumb. Recognize who you are, recognize your strengths and your weaknesses, and learn how to identify what triggers you. And once you learn how to identify what triggers you, now you can put a plan into place so you don't go there when you get upset. So you can
Yeah.
learn how to manage those personal emotions. That's extremely important.
Yeah. And then I think it's important to know, I'm in my mid to 30s, I'm high 30s. I said mid. Anyways, but I started therapy a year or so ago. And you mentioned identifying the source of the anger. And in therapy, what that has helped me with is one, identifying why I may be angry. And on top of that, a lot of times we don't know how to communicate that to the individual that's making us mad.
Mm,
So
yeah.
because we don't know how to communicate it, we don't feel like we have control. And that's where rage and out of control comes in.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to do by yourself. That's why it's good to have, in my case, I had my therapist. I had Miss Eric as well. I had people around me that could help me develop the ability because I did not have the ability. Like 3 years ago, I could not effectively communicate why I was angry. So a lot of times it came off as rage. I realized I got angrier when I couldn't control or I couldn't express my emotions so that for that individual to understand what they was doing to me to make me mad, right? So you have to get to the point to where you can one identify why you're getting angry. Like why are you angry all the time? Why?
Mhm.
And then once you discover that, then you have to develop the ability to communicate to the individuals that's making you mad in your environment. And a lot of time it's the people that's the most consistent in your environment. Like
Yeah.
if you're mad all the time, you probably are in an environment that's triggering you all the time. Maybe you stressed out at home. Is there abuse there? Or is there something at your home that causes you to be angry? Is it someone at school that's bullying you? Or um, is it a girlfriend? Or, what is it? Right? What is that source? Right? And then like is it an issue where you just need to talk to that individual that's causing you the to be angry so y'all can get on the same page so where they don't do the thing that makes you mad anymore? Or if that doesn't work, I think that's the point to where you remove yourself from the situation or from the environment. That's hard when it comes to when it might be your parents or a loved one or like family member. But as far
Yeah.
as like your friends and your girlfriends, I mean, that's a situation where I just have to remove myself from your environment because it's unhealthy for me to be associated with you because you're not considerate of how you are making me feel.
Yeah.
And to the point to where you're not considerate of that, that means you don't have my well-being at heart. So therefore, you really don't care about my well-being. If I have communicated to you what you're doing to anger me, and you have decided, or you have just ignored that and decided that you're going to do it anyways, that's a key identifier for me that you don't need to be in my environment. So that's another benefit of controlling your anger, knowing why you're mad, and identifying it. Because then you can really identify the people in your life that need to be in your life. Because the people in your life that's going to cause you to be angry all the time, like, why do they need to be in your life? Like I said, that's different. That's harder with parents and loved ones and like family members and things like that. That's another, I recommend you talk to. I mean, most parents, if you sit down, you talk to them, you know, they listen and if they love your parents love you, so I mean they'll listen and they'll understand, try to understand where you're coming from. But in other situations, it might just be you need to remove yourself from that situation. Any thoughts on
And
that, Eric?
yeah, most definitely. So I have seen a lot of different cases of parents being abusive. I have seen that. And it's really difficult to, as a teen, I'll put it this way, as a teen, sometimes those lines can be very, very
Right.
blurry
Yeah. Yeah.
because there
That's why I said
is,
it's different with parents. It's hard.
yeah, it's really hard to say. But there is a line between teaching your child, raising your child, and abusing your child.
Mhm.
There's definitely a distinct line there. And so it's very, very important that as young adults, you are very, very respectful of your parents. Now, if certain lines are being crossed, if you're going without food and water as some type of disciplinary action for you, that now we're talking about some abuse here. If you're being punched, If you're being kicked, if you're being slapped in your face, that that that's abusive. And at that point, I would advise talking to the parent about that. I would also advise, if necessary, bring some authoritarian figure, whether it be a grandparent or a pastor, but somebody that can communicate on your behalf. Then do that. And there are certain cases where I have seen where children need to be removed from the home. So
Yeah.
I look at that like the situation that you were talking about with the police officer. You don't fight with a police officer. You're not going to. You can win that fight. There was a situation not very long ago in our area where a young man, he fought a police officer. He won the fight, but he died that day because when the police officer gained his bearings, he shot the man and shot him and killed him. It was very, very messed up situation from the beginning. But you don't fight a police officer and you don't fight your parent. You handle those type of situations going to a higher authority. Don't fight with a cop in the street. Then you take it to the judicial level. Go talk to the judges and the lawyers, because they are the ones that can fight that battle for you. It's the same thing with the parent. If you are genuinely being abused, then you take that up with judges and you take that up with lawyers. There are consequences and repercussions for everything that we do. And at some point, if you're facing abuse, then that may be the best way out, because the last thing that you need to do as an individual is become bitter, because that only makes you more angry. If you need to be in a different situation in order to escape abuse, then I do recommend that you leave the home, but do it through a law appointed way.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And man, I'm we gonna pick up probably back on this topic for next week, because I mean we can go all night on this. It's
Yeah.
really great. And of course, if y'all have any questions, any input y'all wanna add to this, or any questions y'all want me and Mr. Eric to answer, y'all can always text it, or comment on YouTube when we post. And y'all can always call if y'all dealing with something, or y'all dealing with something that y'all cannot control is making you angry, and you need some assistance on how to handle it and how to deal with it. Please reach out to us, man, because living that in anger on a daily basis, living in that type of environment is not healthy. It's not healthy whatsoever. And it could, like we said in the beginning, it could lead to lifelong damage and lifelong negative results. And as early as you can, you want to address it. You want to address it, and and never feel like the person you need to talk to, not going to listen. At least give them a shot. At least
Yeah.
try. At
Yeah.
least try. And if that don't work, then that's when you bring in someone else, or you remove yourself from that situation. Okay. Like I tell you all the time, keep people around you that's gonna propel you and not hold you down. Y'all know that that's my main message. If an individual is not helping you get where you need to get to, or where you want to get to, they don't need to be attached to you. You need to let them go. You need to let them go. But again, we're gonna pick back up on this topic probably next week. Me and Mr. Eric will gather some more information on the topic, and we'll pick it up for next week. I want y'all to have a great week. Be encouraged. And if you need to check in, check in. Y'all have a
Yeah.
great day. All right.
Love y'all.
Love y'all.